Hi everyone, welcome back to another episode of the Fitness Education Series produced by the Australian Fitness Academy. It's like progressive overload for your brain. I'm your host, Tom Rock, and in today's episode, I'm going to talk about are deadlifts good for older adults or bad for older adults? And we're going to start the conversation with that, but we might get on to sort of resistance training in general for the older adult population. But deadlifts are a topic that does come up every now and then in terms of are they a safe exercise? A lot of some people are don't sort of focus on the risks of it or think it's a risky exercise and can cause lower back pain, lower back issues, lower back injuries. But in terms of the deadlift, it's actually a really good exercise for obviously lower body strength, but also core stability and reducing lower back pain and reducing the risk of lower back injuries, as long as the deadlift is done correct. So, and if for older adults, in terms of is it good or bad, it can be a great exercise for older adults to maintain quality of life, maintain that lower body strength, stability, balance, and reduce the chance of, getting lower back pain as they get older. So it can be a really great exercise. So in terms of if it's good or bad, definitely a good exercise. I think it's important with the deadlift, whether you're trying to build it into a client's program, whether they're a beginner and they're 20 years old or they're a beginner and they're an older adult. It's not necessarily an exercise I would put straight into a beginner program. While it is a great exercise, it's a great exercise if done correctly. And it may not be done, if it's not done correctly, that's when you sort of get issues or potentially increase the risk of injury due to this exercise. So obviously technique is very important, understanding how to brace your core and make sure you've got correct spinal alignment and you're maintaining stability, and technique throughout the lift is really, really important. And I'm sure if you've seen any videos online, there's always videos of people going too heavy on deadlifts and their form is shocking, and that's when injuries would occur from doing things like the deadlift, or exercise like the deadlift. But any exercise that's not done correctly or done too heavy, where correct technique is not maintained, will increase the risk of injury. But the deadlift, obviously there's some videos out there of people doing it way too heavy or with terrible form, and that's something that will increase the risk of injury. But in terms of a safe exercise, if it's done correctly, it's a really good exercise, and it can help increase lower body strength, but also it'll increase the strength of your and stability of your spinal erectors. And if your glutes are if our glutes are working well and our glutes are strong and we've got stable hips, that's going to reduce our back pain. So I've had clients in the past that have had lower back pain, and once we start training and increasing hip strength, leg strength, hip stability, and deadlifts are sort of build a deadlift into their program and teach them to sort of brace their core, and they build that strength, full body strength, they find their back pain improves, and it's really rewarding. And so it is a great exercise for the whole lifespan, especially, and older adults can definitely still benefit from the deadlift. I think it's just important, as any client is to build them up to that. We make sure we don't put deadlifts straight into their program. Definitely start by teaching them the hip hinge and then the Romanian deadlift, and work through a series where they slowly sort of build up the skill and the competency to deadlift with correct form. And once you think their form is good at those sort of simpler, less complex exercises, then you can start implementing and teaching the deadlift. And again, same as every exercise, start light and then slowly progress them. And I think that's the key. As long as they're lifting with great form and they slowly progress the resistance, it's going to be a great exercise to build lower body strength and stability and maintain functionality as an older adult. It's going to be really good. And the longer we can maintain that strength, muscle mass, and stability, the longer sort of that quality of life will last. So the deadlift can be a great exercise. Again, it might not be the great exercise for everybody. Lots of things come into play, whether it's mobility, stability, injuries, all these sorts of things will play a part if it's perfect. So it might not be great for every client, but there's no reason not to deadlift if someone's got the mobility and the coordination, I guess, to do so. So start from basic, simple exercises, like a Romania deadlift that's nice and sort of, I guess, light, and then slowly progress from there. Is a really good way to do it. So yeah, have a think about that. I think if you're looking at, is it a good or bad exercise, technique is important, but it can be a really great exercise for older adults. I think another thing older adults and people in general can benefit from is keeping sort of the power or the explosive based exercises in their program. To some extent, doesn't have to be every session. We're not necessarily trying to train athletes or do that, but power is one thing. When we age, we lose sort of the elasticity in our tendons and our muscles get less elastic. We lose that explosive power, and I think that's something we want to maintain as much as possible as well. Whether it's trying to, if we have little stumbles and falls, that ability to sort of catch ourselves and absorb force is really important. So having aspects of this in our training or in anybody's training can really help. So having things like pogo jumps or single leg hops, or dropping off a box and just sort of working on the landing, all sorts of things. There's lots of different ways to incorporate sort of power-based components. Things with bands and stuff are really good potentially. Again, they can get complex, and it's good to work clients into these, but little things like this into a program can really help maintain functionality and sort of longevity, I guess, as well. So yeah, don't be afraid of resistance training with older adults, as long as we sort of aim our program at their training age. It's great. So if they're a beginner, perfect. Start with a beginner program, but don't be afraid to progress them to the more functional or complex exercise that you think about. So machines are a great initiative, and I think older adults, there's a lot of, I guess, more older adult targeted gyms, Kaiser, things like that based around machines. And machines are really good. They're simple and they're generally safe. They require less stability, and you can lift heavier, like push the muscles closer to failure without sort of the risk of dropping a weight or sort of hitting failure and then getting injured, stuck under the bar, or dropping dumbbells and all these sorts of things, falling over. Can't happen if we're on a machine. So machines are really good for stimulating muscle growth and hypertrophy and maintaining muscle mass as we age. So machines are really, really useful and a great initiative, I think. And they can make up a majority of an older adult program potentially, especially to start with if we're teaching them movements and trying to get the most out of their work. But I think it's also important to progress them or have some component we are progressing in their workout that takes them more towards that free weight and overall strength in free weights, whether it's squats, if they have the stability and balance, or the deadlift, for example, if they have the mobility, or we do deadlifts on blocks. These free weight exercises can help them maintain that stability, probably a little bit better than machines because of the free weight nature of it. So it's going to help maintain stability. So when we're walking upstairs, all these sort of things, we have that hip stability, ankle stability, all sorts of things that are going to help us maintain that functionality. So while machines are really, really good, and a lot of older adults will stick to machines, and that's definitely great, they can sort of build a lot of muscle or maintain muscle mass that way. I think if we can also incorporate some strength-based free weight exercise into their program, or at least progress them towards that, it's a really good option to help maintain that functionality as long as possible. So yeah, something to think about, I think, and that sort of works at every stage of life, whether it's a 20-year-old or a 70-year-old, anywhere in between. If we're a beginner, start them on exercises that teach them correct movement patterns, and they start to understand how to brace your core and maintain correct spinal alignment, all these sorts of things we need to learn as a beginner on simple controlled exercises. As they get better and they progress, you can start to give them more complex exercises and sort of increase the load and make sure they're sort of progressing week to week or month to month, but they're maintaining that good technique. And having those fundamental techniques built early is really important for the training 6, 12, 18 months down the track. So that can work at any stage of the time frame, I think. So yeah, think about what exercises or what the outcome you're looking at for an exercise or for a client, and try work towards exercises you think are going to help them reach their goals. And I think an older adult's goal is generally to maintain as much strength and stability and functionality as possible. And a deadlift can be a great example. We want to progress them towards that, obviously, but a deadlift can be a great exercise for that. Anyway, I hope you got a little bit out of that, guys, in terms of deadlifts and their safety and things like that. It's just something that you want to maintain correct technique. Going too heavy and not maintain technique is what's going to sort of cause the problems there. But if you do have any thoughts on this topic, email tom@afa.com.au, or if you've got any questions or topics you'd like me to cover, shoot me an email as well. Definitely happy to cover off on anything you guys would like to hear about. Other than that, guys, have a great weekend, and I'll talk to you all soon.